Jim Brown and I are going to be talking about the transition. And Jim, how are you doing today?
Good, Steve. I was in New Orleans for the day, just got back home and thought we'd kind of take a little break from the politics, if you will, but it doesn't seem to ever stop, does it? On both the national level and Louisiana's level, there's a whole flow of political activity, and I listened to it in the car and perused your site and the various websites. So far from harmony, there seems to be a great deal of contradictions. Maybe we can talk about it for a few minutes here today.
Sure. Let's see. I'm actually trying to find this online. So go ahead.
Well, I'll give your listeners a little summary. What happened? Donald Trump invited a number of major media outlets, newspapers, and television stations, the top people in, for a meeting. And I think the consensus of them was it was going to be somewhat of a peace offering. Let's try to work together, and I'll try to give you more accessibility, but it's reasonable. And they felt like it was a kind of an open invitation. But when they got there, the headlines I'm seeing so far is that Trump basically told them it's my way or the highway. You're going to do it my way, and you're not going to make demands upon me as to what I should or should not do, who I'm going to appoint, how many press conferences I should have, how many press can tag along with me. That's just going to be my decision. And if you don't like it, well, that's how it's going to be. And so I guess when you analyze that, because normally at this point in time, Steve, it's a honeymoon time when you're all kind of rallying behind the new leader and you're looking over his appointments. I think that Trump is miffed by the responses to some of his initial appointments. He appointed Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General, and I saw editorials in both the New York Post and the New York Times, the Washington Post, just castigating Trump for making a poor appointment in Sessions and saying some things that the Trump folks and others dispute that really aren't that true. Sessions really wasn't a segregationist per se, and he integrated schools when he's Attorney General of Alabama. A lot of controversy about that early record. And so I think that miffed him. I think there's lots of rumors going around about what he should and should not do, and he's miffed by those rumors. And maybe he just feels like that he can go above the press, and he actually wants to keep a hard line feeling there, Steve, that the press is out to get him. They're not being fair. And that engenders his base. And his base is not the 20% he got during the campaign, the Republican primary. It's 50%. Half the voters voted for Donald Trump. So he may be thinking he can engender that feeling of distrust in the press. And polls show there's a great distrust. The danger for him, of course, is death by 1,000 cuts. If you continue to rattle those cages, that the press is so widespread, the mainline press, they can just nip away at you and criticize day after day after day, and that takes its toll. Now, Trump feels like he's tough enough, and he went above their heads before, although I've written a column about it, and you and I have discussed it. If it wasn't for the massive press attention that Trump got, that quite frankly, he would probably never have gotten the Republican nomination. So he kind of lived by the press and now maybe dying by the press, but he thinks that he can go above that. He can do that. And quite a difference in terms of the approach. His vice presidential candidate, Mike Pence, went to the Broadway show Hamilton here over the weekend. And when the show was over, the lead actor who wrote the act didn't call him out, but said he's hoping for a much better relationship. And the Hamilton cast called it a dialogue. Trump said it was an attack on Pence and on him. Pence handled it very well. He said, look, he wasn't offended by everybody, his freedom of expression, and came across as kind of a classy guy.
Right.
Trump did not. He tweeted very strong opposition to what they did, a lot of negativity. And I think he feels like, when he tried to be a statesman about a month out of the campaign, his numbers started going down. When he got belligerent and in your face, the numbers went back up. And so maybe that's the feeling he has. Look, I'm going to deal with foreign leaders, and I'm not going to take a lot of guff. And this diplomacy can go on for years and years, and it's just not going to be that way if you're the most powerful nation in the country. You have the right, or in the world, you have the right to set some ground rules, and people better live by those ground rules if you want to do trading with America. So who knows what's in his mind, But I just can't think that he's just waking up in the middle of the night and blasting the press or having these meetings and blasting the press without some particular method, some particular idea, a philosophy that he is. I just don't think he's being belligerent and going off the shoulder. It's been going on for too long. We all make mistakes. We all shoot our mouths off, but we kind of hone back in. He's not honed back in, and it looks like that's his focus. That's what he's going to continue to do.
Well, I actually was watching this morning. I was watching a gentleman who writes for Hollywood Reporter, who had an interview with Steve Bannon last week, and basically what he's saying that there is actually a strategy by them to pick these fights because his supporters are going to, no matter what, they're going to respond to support him, and they want to beat up the media. They want to beat up anybody who is against them, whether it's the Clintons or the Democrats or the media or just the normal suspects. And that's how they're going about this. So instead of, as you mentioned, normally you have a situation where you have a honeymoon. Here they don't particularly want a honeymoon. They want to get in the face. They want to be able to get their 50% and plus, and this is the way that they're going to, at this point, just approach things.
You gotta figure, Steve, that it would be different if, say, it was a smaller state senator who just had gotten beaten up pretty much and just was being belligerent but Trump ain't no fool. I mean, a lot of people don't like the guy. Others love him. But, I mean, within his business acumen, he has to make some decisions and be well informed. Looks like he's got some bright kids. He's got some pretty good advisors around him. And so I agree with you. I think that, first of all, we thought he'd just being belligerent and shooting his mouth off. But that's not the case. I think you've hit it right on the head in terms of a strategy to continue to pop the press, to kind of keep them at bay so they're not, so that there's a distrust of anything they say and anything they write. And I think that came out of that meeting today. I'm sure there will be hoots and howls in editorials across the country tomorrow about...
His popularity is just going to go up.
And you say, well, that's not good for democracy. Who knows? The proof is in the pudding, and we'll judge it here in about 2 years. Here's a guy now, because I think he knows there's an awful lot in the line here, Steve. This is not Barack Obama playing against a Republican Congress. This is a Republican president with a solid Republican majority in the House of Representatives, a Republican Senate, and a Supreme Court appointment that's going to give him a strong conservative flow from the Supreme Court. And so he's got pressure on him to produce in terms of all the things that he said and talked about. And so maybe part of the strategy is to not let the press be able to pick apart every decision he makes on immigration, on health care, a number of these issues. Put the press on defensive so that the American people say, wait a minute, they're beating up on our poor president. He's out there fighting the good fight. He's trying to exercise his ideas he put forth. He won the presidency, and darn it, the press ought to get off his back. So I'm inclined to move more in that direction, but we'll have a chance to kind of second guess and analyze this here in the weeks to come.
Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share our screen, and I'm going to get to a Twitter page. Sorry. So bear with me.
We'd like to see some of the tweets go up and that are coming from the Trump supporters and from Trump himself. Usually you go to your Twitter page to find tweets of those who support or don't support. In this case, we can go see what the president himself directly says, because he's going above the heads of the press and going right to the people that want to deal with it. Yeah, I see what we have on the screen right now. It's the top news story, first news story that comes up. Donald Trump's media summit was an effing firing squad, scolding the media big shots off the record Trump Tower. And so in any event, he's letting them know that he's not going to be a pushover or genuflect to them, kowtow to them. And I think two things. Number one, I agree with you, Steve. I'm leaning more towards the calculation effort. But I also think that he was miffed by the fact that in his mind, he made some pretty good appointments. Rudy Giuliani, I think he wants to point to some solid post. This was at the height of his popularity. He was America's mayor after 9/11. Giuliani, though, has gone ahead and represented a number of foreign governments, a number of others
Bear with me for a second. Apparently, I'm looking at the screen, and apparently this happened before, and I do apologize. That's not going to work. It worked for me on some, if I do it by myself. But if you have more than two people sharing a screen like this, it's not going to work. So we'll have to go back. Okay, well, but thank you. I appreciate it. So getting back for a second, I'm going to look at my own Twitter feed as we talk. And so, yeah, I mean, no question that the media, I mean, they feel the media summit was a effing firing squad is what they call it. Here's Donald Trump. I'm looking at some of his tweets. I watched parts of NBC SNL Saturday Night Live last night. It is totally one-sided, biased show, nothing funny at all, equal time for us. What do you think?
I'm sorry, read that one more time to me.
Basically what he's doing, he's slamming Saturday Night Live. He's saying that it's biased.
Well, first of all, even if you don't like, whether if you're a big Trump supporter, you got to admit that Alec Baldwin does a pretty good imitation of him. And maybe he just, again, riling up the, Saturday Night Live, usually a little bit moderate to liberal slant. Maybe that's in his overall scheme with the press. Mike Pence would look at it and say, it's kind of funny that Baldwin can't, he does not as good looking as me, but I had to laugh at him. Of course, it's not at all true, but that's comedy. They just pick up comedy, and I kind of laughed about it and blew it off. But what he's doing is that I think it plays into his media game. On the other hand, Steve, what it's doing is it's driving a lot more people to Saturday Night Live. They want to go watch what Alec Baldwin is doing and saying about him. And why would you get ruffled over some TV show that comes on at 10:30, 11:30 at night in the East Coast? It's got a pretty popular following. I imagine there's 6 million people. That's in a country of 330 million people. So I don't know why he's gotten ruffled unless number one, it's just a slow Saturday night, he's irritated, or it's part of this calculated effort you and I are talking about of undercutting media, good, bad, comedy, whatever it happens to be against it.
Okay, so, do we have a guy who's so thin-skinned that, he can't take any criticism? This is really amazing, I think. You had the situation with Hamilton. It was done, I think, I certainly probably would not have applauded or booed. I would not have applauded or booed. I would have, certainly, if I were the cast member, I certainly would not have made a show of it like they did. Pence handled it, I think, beautifully. Donald Trump didn't. He went and he attacked. And I wrote something on Facebook earlier today, and basically, I don't want to if I could find it, I'll reread it, but basically what I said was, hey, what? Here's a guy who kept on telling us to stop being politically correct. So what's he doing? He's trying to make us anything he doesn't like, okay? Why can't, he take his own medicine and stop being politically correct? Is it that he can't take it? He blasts everybody. He blasts women. He blasts women calling them liars. He blasts people who were were quite frankly disabled. He blasts, his Republican opponents. And every time that they defended themselves, he says, well, stop being political correct. I hate being political correct. Well, what is he but political correct in both the situation with, this is art. This is, he may not like it, but it's art. Okay? I mean, in terms of, this is protests. I don't get it. I wouldn't do it, but I'm not going to go to Twitter and blast them, because in doing so, I'm going to look like exactly those people I've complained about, and I'm going to be blasted for being politically correct. Your thoughts?
Well, Steve, maybe he's thinking, look, I'm not going to get a good hunk. I'm not going to win over. My rhetoric was so incisive and so strong that I'm not going to get a lot of those hardcore Clinton people. And I just wonder if he's looked at the demographics of who's watching Saturday Night Live. Are that many of the middle-class, blue-collar, white Americans watching Saturday Night Live? Are they part of that 6 or 7 million that are actually watching it? So I'm just saying, if his people aren't really watching it, then it's just one more media vindictive to take out on. And so it's part of his overall grand strategy.
Is he complaining about Hannity? Is he complaining about Rush Limbaugh? Is he complaining about Levine? I mean, these are, quote, entertainment, news, content. I mean, I don't see where he can blast one without blasting the other.
Well, but why would he blast Hannity, who's kind of was his almost secondary campaign manager? And Limbaugh came on very strong towards the end. They all did. So, the satire and the bite of the knife is a more, I think, the more liberal audience that watches a show like Saturday Night Live. Younger people, it's on late at night. And so it just gives him, a villain, in effect, someone to beat up on, just as he's talking to the mainline press. I mean, we saw that. It would be inconceivable to think that a past president would 1 week into
I did something I should not have done. Go ahead.
Lecturing them and reading them the riot act. That's just never happened before. So it's all part of the aura that maybe he thinks that's how he's going to have to govern the next 4 years. And just don't let go. And there's been a lot of questions about his conflicts of interest. He met with the Japanese prime minister. He's had some headlines in some papers. Shaw said it was a terrible week for him. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But he says, you don't give me any slack at all. You beat up on me from the word go, my first couple of appointments, and you don't give me any slack like you do in past president, so to heck with you. I'm just going to take out after you. And maybe that's the strategy. And look, it's the strategy used during the campaign, Steve, and look where it got him. He's the president-elect of the United States. So who can tell how it will endeavor? I think he maybe just accepted the fact that there's going to be a major confrontational effort on the part of the press with him for the entire 4 years. So therefore, get out front of it and just don't give and just say it's unfair and act sympathetic. Go ahead and go for the jugular. That's the only thing I can think of, because you wouldn't do it, I wouldn't do it, most of your listeners wouldn't do it. But he's doing it, and again, he won the presidency. So, Steve, 3 weeks before you and I did this show, before the election, 3 weeks before the election, the odds of the Las Vegas bookies were 450 to 100. What that means is, if you wanted to win $100 on Donald Trump being president, you had to put up $450. Just tremendous odds against you. And his bombacity overcame the odds, and he was president. So you're just not going to put a muzzle on him here for the immediate future. Yeah.
So what about his picks? What do you think?
Well, that fellow Prince Rebus, who is his chief of staff, seems to be well accepted by Republicans and Democrats to say, he's well connected within the Washington establishment, and he'll be someone they can deal with, and that seems to be going pretty well for him. No criticism on him. The big criticism right now is centered on Senator Jeff Sessions, Alabama senator, who, by the way, was nominated as a federal judge back in the 80s and was rejected by the Republican-controlled Senate Senate. It was Republican-controlled Senate back then. They didn't like some of the allegations about his background involving civil rights. The sense of some of the key senators is, well, that's gone, and he answered those questions okay, and he'll go. But he's going to be very insightful. We've got a case right here in Baton Rouge, the young black man that was killed by police officers. The Justice Department is quickly going to make a decision whether to indict him or not, and there's a lot of concern that that won't get a fair review because of Sessions and his political background. Okay. But on the other hand, look at all the criticism of the current Attorney General involving the emails and the FBI. And so, politics is part of the whole flow, and within the Justice Department, the FBI, and we can always find some side that's not going to like a decision being made, and it's Trump's Attorney General, and so I think he'll end up being selected. But he's very controversial and very divisive, and I think that's good. But that seems to be part of the whole flow of the Trump presidency, or the lead up to the Trump presidency at this time.
Okay, put something on the screen. I don't know if you can see it. Okay.
I don't see it from here. I know.
Okay, well, if you were looking at Facebook right now, you would be able to see it. And basically, what it is, it's a picture of the Donald with a new photo with Chris Kobach, who is being considered for Secretary of Homeland Security, meeting with the President-elect Trump. And he's got his portfolio, he's got his material, and in big bold yellow, it says "Build the Wall, Rapid Build." Now, this guy is pretty controversial from the standpoint that, as I remember, and somebody please forgive me if I have this wrong, but I think this is the guy that actually was talking about having, say, to develop a list, of, for Muslims and Hispanics. And so he's going to the Homeland Security. That's going to be a whole very controversial proposal. I mean, Trump's not backed off of his feeling about illegal immigrants, and if you look at polls, there is a good feeling that we've way overplayed the card of illegal immigrants in this country in terms of letting so many stay and what we're going to do to keep so many out. So that's a very electrifying issue that certainly will cause great debate in Congress. But Trump, I think his supporters, he's got a base he's got to deal with. He told them he's going to build a wall and that Mexico is going to pay for it. I don't think most of us and most of the Trump people feel like he'll actually build a wall across the entire Mexican border and that Americans are going to pay for it. But I think he's getting some strong rhetoric out there. He's got to do something to crack down. And so as a consequence, Kobach is going to implement exactly what Trump tells him, and he's got some people that he's got to answer to in terms of that campaign promise. So I don't know. I wonder if the Secretary of Homeland Security, I think he's going to be confirmed by the Senate. So there's going to be some very rancorous confirmation hearings that are going to take place. It'll be great TV. Absolutely. Now, here's something. This is a tweet that I came across. And it says, Seig Heil. Let me tell you what happened here. An organization, an alt-right organization, had a meeting in Washington, D.C. I believe it was on Pennsylvania Avenue. It was actually at the Reagan Building, and this was, I think, Friday. And basically, they had a number of the speakers for alt-right. One is this gentleman named Spencer, who is one of the thought leaders of the alt-right. And he made certain comments, such as how pleased they were about Donald Trump now being the president. He said, I don't think that Donald Trump is a member of is an alt-righter. He said that. He said that that basically that the alt-right needed a body, and the Trump campaign needed a head, and the two of them have come together since the election. So later on that evening, apparently, they went to a restaurant, and a number of people, at least 3 people, took a picture of Seig Heil. This is not the image that you want to project if you're a member of the alt-right or part of the alt-right. This is not a picture that you want to project if you're Trump transition. But, this is the image that is being projected within the media, I believe. And maybe this is what Trump is pushing back upon. He's saying, hey, look, we're not racist, we're not Nazis, we're not even all right. But the problem is that when you pick somebody like Bannon, the problem is that when you pick somebody, like Jeff Sessions, or when you pick somebody like the other gentleman that I just put up, you begin, to create what is called a white nationalist, whether it's alt-right or white nationalist movement. And so that's what's being projected. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that for the next first 6 months, Steve, I don't think it makes a lot of difference who he appoints within some reasonable parameters. I think that people are saying, look, he's our president. This is the guy that said he could stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone in the head and wouldn't lose one voter because of it. And people said, yeah, his people. So I think he gets a pretty solid honeymoon for 6-8 months down the line and can deal with issues like Bannon and Jeff Sessions. But at some point in time, this could turn on him very dramatically, particularly though you see the whole focus has been on him. There was a little bit about Lewinsky and some of his his campaign managers were in the campaign. Pretty much the campaign was all Donald Trump. Well, there's so many major issues at hand that this fellow Kobloch, if he's the head of Homeland Security, Jeff Sessions is Attorney General, they're going to make decision after decision that are going to have to stand on their own. And it's going to come from them and not from the president. And as a consequence, I think that he can do about what he wants for the immediate 6 months, maybe a year honeymoon. But after that, all these other people around him doing very controversial things are going to have a piling on effect, if you will, death by 1,000 cuts, if I can use that scenario. And I think it'll hurt him not so much now, but it could very well way down the line in the future. I think he gets pretty much a pass right now. He did during the campaign, and this whole effort to beat up on the press gives him that too. And I think that he's got that going for him. And Steve, with that, I've got a very important date with a 5-year-old little niece of mine who's got a birthday party, and she insists I be there to help her blow out the candles. So I hate to back out on you because we're involved in a very hot debate, but it'll give us plenty of fodder for another time, but that's okay.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, thank you so much, and we will put this up on YouTube and on Bayou Buzz and elsewhere. And if anybody wants to participate in any of these, we have some new technology that will actually allow that. So take care and tell your niece happy birthday.
Okay, take care.